Okay, so in this video, we're going to work on the rock, paper, scissors game. Okay, so I'm going to start off with a blank form. And maybe I'm going to increase the size a little bit of the form, not too much. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put one picture box here in the middle. And maybe two labels, one here, one there. And then I'm going to put 3 buttons. One for paper, one for rock, and maybe one for scissors. Okay, and then I'm going to increase the size of this, try to make them look kind of like squares. This as well. And then if I select this, and this here, I think I can also make the same size. Right, there you go. Just press the same size button, and now they all match. If you want to, we can increase the font size a little bit. So I'm going to go here to my form properties. Click on the form itself. And right here, I will set this to maybe 12. Yeah, there you go. That looks okay. And then here for label 1, I'm going to set the border style to fixed 3D. And auto size false. And then I'm going to increase the size of this a little bit. Try to put it in the center there. And let's see what else. Same thing goes for this one here at the bottom. Auto size false, border style fixed 3D, and then increase this as well. And you can make them the same size if you want. Make same size. There you go. And I can also center the text align. Put them in the center there. Okay. And then maybe the picture box can go in the middle as well. I have a phone call. Give me a second. Okay. So here for label 1, we'll put here, this is going to be the picture box for the computer. So I'll put here computer choice. And then here at the bottom, this will be kind of like our status bar. So here we'll give the user some instructions like select or maybe press one of the buttons above. And then when the winner either wins or loses, we'll put that here. So we'll name this here LBL status. And then here we'll call this well, I don't think we're going to really mess with this, so I don't think we need to name it. This picture box, though, we do need to name this. This is PC computer. And here for the button 1 text, or for the name of it, that'll be BTN rock. This here will be BTN paper, and this will be BTN scissors. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to change the text from button 1. I'm going to change it to just 1. So this will be 1. This will be 2. And this will be 3. Okay. I think this is still not in the middle, but we'll fix that in a little bit. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to import my resources for my images. So where am I going to get my images from? I can go maybe, I think I can go under project, and then I can go to resources, and then I can add a resource. Okay, so I'm going to click here and go add from existing file. And I'm going to go to my desktop. And I have 3 pictures here. I have one for paper, rock, scissors. So let me put rock first. And then I'm going to add another resource. I'm going to put, let me see. So I click the add resource button, and I'm going to call this maybe paper. Oh, what happened there? I think it wants me to draw a picture. No thanks. Let's remove the resource. Let's just add from the existing file. Let's just do it the old way. So that was paper. This is rock. Oh, we already did rock. Paper, rock, paper. And then we'll add the last one. Add from existing file. And this will be scissors. There you go. So now we have all 3 resources. And we can save this and close it. Now let's see if we can get the image to show up in the button. So I'll click here under image, and this dialog box will show up here. So this will be rock. So we'll do OK. This here will be paper. That doesn't really look like paper. I need to check that. And this could be scissors. Let's check the resource here. I think there might be an error. Properties. Here's the paper resource. Looks odd. Let me compile real quick. Okay, there you go. It's just a glitch in the system, but it's there. I don't know why it looks like that. Is there a way I can maybe refresh? What happens if I close the form design, close this out, and then double click the form again? There you go. So I kind of refreshed it there. So now we have the rock, paper, and the scissors. And each one of these buttons has a number. It has a 1, a 2, and a 3. Right? Because we're going to need that number later, so that way we can create our functions. Right? Okay. So let's go ahead and double click our form. So that'll generate a form event handler, which I don't think we need at the moment, but just in case, it'll be there for us. What we do need, however, are we're going to need some constants, so that way we can use those constants in our application, right? In our functions. And we're going to do them at the class level, right? So this will be class level constants. Okay. And then we'll make one const. We'll call it int rock as integer, and we'll set it equal to 1. And then we'll do const int paper as integer, and that equals 2. And this is const int scissors, and we'll assign that a value of 3. Okay. Now, for the computer to make a choice, normally when you play paper, rock, scissors, normally you just kind of choose at random and hope you win, right? So the computer is going to do the same thing. It's going to generate a random integer, and that random integer, if it's one of these values, then we'll set up the rules, right? So if I, for some reason, play rock and he plays paper, so in other words, he generated a random number of 2, then the computer wins. Whereas if I press 2 or I press paper and he puts scissors, then I win, right? But either way, the computer has to generate a value between 1 and 3 randomly, right? So that way we can actually play against the computer. So for that, what we're going to do is we're going to set up what's called a function. Now, a function, you can think of it as a small program. We've already done functions or sub-procedures in the past, but here the only difference between a sub-procedure or sub and a function is that the function returns something. In other words, it's got an input and it's got an output. So function, you type function, and then you type the name of the function. So what do I want this function to do? I want this function to generate a random number. So I'm going to call it generate random. And then for the input of this function, I could put arguments, right? But in this case, it doesn't really need input in this particular case because it's just going to generate a random number from 1, 2, or 3. It doesn't really need anything else. Now, if I wanted to, let's say in the textbook, you want to make a function to add 2 numbers together, then the input would be the 2 numbers, and then the output would be the sum of those 2 numbers, right? So we type the word function, we type the name of the function, and then you type the return type, right? So what type of value or what type of output is this function going to give? Well, it's going to give an output of an integer, right? And you press enter, and then you have in function. And then you get this little green squiggly line that says that there's a return statement missing, right? Because it has to return output, right? And we haven't typed the output yet. So that's why it's giving us that. Right. Now to do random, we're going to do dim. We're going to call it rand as new random. Right. And then we're going to create an integer, and we're going to call it int random as integer. And then we're going to use our rand that we declared here of random class. And I'm going to type rand dot, and then we have some methods here. So we look at the rand.next. That is a function that's part of the random class. You see here, it says function next, and it returns the next integer. And then the argument here, we'll put a 3. So we leave it like this. Then this rand.next will generate a random number between 0 and 2. Because 0, 1, 2, that's 3 values, right? But our constants here they start at 1, 2, 3. So in other words, we want a random value between 1 and 3. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put +1. Right? So then now, if for some reason this part here generates a 0, which isn't one of my options here, then it'll upgrade it or it'll increment it to 1. If it generates a 2, then it'll add +1, and that 2 is really a 3. Right? So that's why we put the +1 there. Now, this function is supposed to have output. So we're going to return, I'm going to return whatever random number we came up with. Right? So I guess the point is that not all functions will require input, right? It won't require any parameters here within the parentheses, but every function will return something, right? Because here it says adds integer. If it doesn't return anything, kind of like this load subprocedure here, it just calls some code that we place here. Here we could put a message box, like message box.show, and then hello. Right? This statement here is the only thing that this subprocedure will execute. The subprocedure will not return anything. So that's why it doesn't have a return. It doesn't have output. It just performs some task, and then that's it. All right. Unlike this generate random, though, this will return a random value, and we can test it out. So I'm gonna actually type it here, int random, and then I'm gonna run this, and we have an error. Oh, I see a problem. Okay, so int random here is not part of this function, right? This is what the function is returning. Int random is local only to generate random. It's not local to anything else, right? So what I have to do, sorry about that, is I have to call the function. And since the function returns random, then I can get the value from there and then show it, right? And you can even, I think, maybe do toString. There you go. Okay, so now run it, right? And then it returns a 2, right? And it did it during form load. So we run it at the beginning, it does 2 again. Let's see if we can get a different number. Keeps generating the same number over and over. That's odd. Let's see here. Okay, there you go. 1. And it just happened to be a coincidence that it was doing the same number over and over. Are we ever going to get in scissors? Is this thing ever going to produce a 3? I don't know. 1. Keeps doing 1. But that's okay. Eventually, I'm sure it'll produce scissors. But that's the idea. Right? So this here, this is a function call. Right? I had to call the generate random function in order for me to see the random number that's being returned. Right? Okay. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a subprocedure. A subprocedure is like a function, but it doesn't return anything. So I'm going to call it sub, and I'm going to call it check winner. And in the parentheses, we can put here some form of input for the function. In this case, if I need to check the winner, then I need to see whatever the player's choice is, right? So if the player chose rock, then I need to send that over to the subprocedure. If they chose scissors, I need to send that over. If they chose whatever else, then I need to send that information, right? And I'm going to send it by value. And I'm going to call it int player choice as integer. Okay. And then press enter, and that'll be the end of the sub procedure, or it'll put the end there. Okay. So then the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to create a dim int computer choice as integer, and I'm going to set it equal to, well, I'm going to call my generate random function, generate random, press enter, right? So this generate random is going to create some sort of random value, and that random value is going to be saved in the int choice variable. So now I have, at this point, I have both the player choice and I have the computer's choice. Now it's time to compare them and to check them, right? Okay, so once we have both the player's choice and the computer's choice, then the next thing we need to do is display the computer choice image, right? So remember, we have that pick box called pick computer. So then we have to display the correct picture there. So how are we going to do that? So here we can just use a set of if statements. So if int computer choice happens to equal int rock, and remember int rock is our constant, then I'm going to change the picture in the picture box. So pick computer dot image equals, and then I'm going to go to my resources, and I'm going to choose, and if you see here, it gives us all our choices here. So I'm going to choose rock there. Okay. Now, else if int computer choice equals int paper, then I'm going to choose pick, or I'm going to set the picture of the computer's pick as my resource dot paper, right? And else, right, there's no other choice. It's either rock, paper, or scissors. So then if it's neither one of those, then it's pick computer dot image, and I'm going to set it equal to resources dot scissors, right? So it all depends on what value was randomly generated. Okay. Now, once we have the picture showing, now it's time to evaluate the player's choice. Right? We need to see if the player won or if they lost or what happened. So then the rules for paper, rock, scissors is, I'll put them here for you. Rock smashes scissors. paper covers rock and scissors cuts paper. Right? Those are our rules for winning. Now, let's code it here. If int player choice equals rock, or int rock, sorry, and int computer choice equals int scissors, then what happens? Well, then LBL status dot text equals player wins. Okay. Else, if int player choice equals int paper and int computer choice equals int equals int rock, then LBL status dot text equals player wins. Okay, here I'm going to put the rule here, so that way we know what happened exactly. So here in player wins because rock smashes scissors. Here player 1 wins because paper covers rock. And else if int player choice equals scissors, and int computer choice equals paper, int paper, then LBL status dot text equals, again, player wins because scissors cuts paper. Okay. So far we've evaluated all the ways the player can win. The next thing we need to do is, let's say none of these conditions are true because the player lost. Well, then now we need to evaluate the computer's winning moves, right? So here, this is if the player wins. So we can label that here. If player wins, then this is why, right? This here will be if player loses. So then we can take the same approach, except this time we'll flip it around. Instead of it being player choice first, it'll be computers first. So then we'll do something like if int computer choice equals int rock, and int player choice equals int scissors, then we could type something like lbl status dot text and something like you lose, because again rock smashes paper. Oh, I'm sorry, rock smashes scissors, excuse me. Okay, else if int computer choice equals int paper and int player choice equals int rock, then lbl status dot text equals you lose, because paper covers rock. And finally, else if int computer choice, sorry, equals int scissors, then that means that int player choice, he chose scissors, so his scissors got smashed, or oh, I'm sorry, int paper. It does get a little confusing, but it helps if you have the rules here, so that way you can reference them. So if the computer chose scissors and the player chose paper, then the player loses because his paper got cut. You lose, and because the scissors cuts paper. And then here I'll make it so that way it's kind of similar. You lose, you lose, you lose. Okay. Now let's say none of these conditions are true. Right? The only reason they would none of these would be true is if for some reason the player and the computer both chose the same thing. Right? If they both chose the same thing, then nobody wins, right? Because a rock can't smash a rock, a paper can't cover a paper, and a scissor can't cut up scissors. Probably in real life it could, but in the game it doesn't. So then we can have for a tie, right? What to do if tie. Right? So then we'll just evaluate. We'll just say if for some reason int player choice equals int computer choice. In other words, they're the same. They both chose the same thing. Then we'll just do lbl status dot text equals tie. Okay. So I think that's going to be it for our check winner. What we're going to do now is we're going to set up our event handler. Our event handler is a special type of subprocedure that's connected to a button, right? So to generate those, of course, what you usually do is you double click. So double click here. And that'll generate the rock click. We'll generate all three. Okay. So here what we'll do is we can call the function here called check winner, and we'll get the text from the button. So we'll convert it to an int. Okay. So here C int will be btn, and this is rock here, dot text, right? And we'll send that over to the function, right? So we're getting the text from the text button, right? Remember the text here, the 1. I'm getting the 1. I'm converting it to an integer, and then I'm sending it over to check winner. Right, we could have done it another way. We could have done here, I'm going to go to paper. I'm going to do dim int player choice as integer equals, and then I'm going to do cint, and then I'm going to get the text, or I'm going to from the button, so that's btn. This is paper here dot text, right? So well, here what I did was I just created a separate variable for it, and I got the variable from the text. So right, so here we're dealing with paper, so that's a 2. So I'm getting the 2, converting it to an int, and assigning it to the int player variable, and then I can call the check winner function. And then here I'll just pass over int player choice. Right? So you could have done it in 1 line, like the way I did here. You can do it in 2 lines if you want. Right? And then finally here I can just do check winner, and then cint btn scissors dot text. Right, so we can get it from there. Or let's say you didn't want to use the number that's in the text box here. Then you could have just simply deleted all this and just do int scissors, right? So that'll pass over a 3. We don't know what's passing over here, right? So 3 ways of doing the same thing, right? So this is probably going to be your best option here, because we know if they press scissors, then we know that that's the choice they want. And then I'm going to send over int scissors, which happens to be a 3. Right? And then the check winner function sends the execution to the beginning of the check winner subprocedure that takes int player choice as an argument and then passes this over. Now, in the subprocedure, this thing that says by value int player choice, this is called a parameter, or a formal parameter. Formal parameter. Here, this is the function call, or the subprocedure call, subcall, and the thing in the parentheses is called an argument, with argument, which is also known as the actual parameter, right? But normally it's usually called an argument when it's in the function call, and when it's in the actual subprocedure definition, then it's called a parameter, or a formal parameter. Right? So we have formal parameter and actual parameter, right? This is the actual value itself. The other one is just a placeholder. Right? So you can think of it that way. Okay, so let's go ahead and try this, see if it's fun. Okay, I already gave away the answer. Let me stop that. Here in the form load, I'm going to comment out the message box so that way we don't give away the answer. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose rock. And I lost because paper covers rock. Okay, so I'm going to choose scissors. And it's a tie because we both chose scissors. I'm going to choose paper. Tie again. I'm going to choose paper again. I lost again. I'm going to choose rock, because rock smashes scissors, so he chose a scissors again. I'm going to choose paper, tie, paper, tie. Okay, now I win, because he chose rock, and I chose paper. So then I do here, tie, I lost, tie. Right, maybe we could set up a scoreboard of some sort. Alright, so it seems to be working okay. Let's play one more. Paper covers rock. Okay. So we could set up a scoreboard. It shouldn't be too challenging. So here I'm going to do class level variable. I'm going to do dim int player wins, and I'm going to set it equal to 0. And then here I'm going to do dim int computer wins, and I'm going to set that also to 0. Okay, so these are our scores here, and I can label that scores. Okay. And here are all my choices where the player wins. So each one of these, I'm going to increase my int. Okay, int player. I'm sorry, int player wins plus equals 1. Right, so that'll increase my score plus 1. I'm going to copy this over to here as well. So he wins here and he wins there. And then here I'm going to do int computer wins, and I'm going to increment that by 1. And the same thing for the other two conditions. And then here, well, nobody wins, so nobody gets any points. And that's what I was thinking. Maybe this other label here, didn't know really what to do with it, but now I think I could use this as a scoreboard. So then let me view the properties window. And let's call this guy here, instead of label 1, let's call him LBL score. Okay. And then I'm gonna close out the properties here. And then here in my check winner function, at the end, at the end of the sub procedure, I'm going to report the score. Report the score. Okay. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to do LBL score dot text, and then I'm going to concatenate. All right. So that's going to equal player, and then I'm going to concatenate int player wins. And then I'm going to concatenate again. Then another choice. Maybe I could put like a colon, computer, right? And we'll see how many times the computer wins. And then I'll concatenate here int computer wins. Right? So each time the scoreboard will be updated with the points for each side. Okay, so let's run that again. So right now it just says computer choice, but the minute I press rock, I won once, computer lost, right? Player wins. I'm going to choose rock again. Now I lost. I'm going to choose paper. Computer wins again, right? Because he cut my paper. I'm going to do scissors. Oh, computer's winning. So now I won. And there's a tie. Nobody wins. All right, now we're tied. So then I'm going to do rock. Oh, computer beat me there. Tie. Right, and this could go on forever. You could play with somebody. You could play do 2 out of 3, right? And whoever wins, that's the end of the game. But either way, I think that was pretty good use of this here. I was thinking that label's kind of useless, but now it serves more of a practical purpose, right? To actually show the scoreboard, right? We'll do one more for good measure. I keep getting all these ties. There you go. Okay. So I think that concludes this application here. I hope you enjoyed it. You see, and we have 3 buttons, and the whole point of doing the sub procedures was that we don't have to type so much, right? We only type everything in one place, and then we can call it depending on what we need, right? So make sure you read chapter 6, and if you have any questions, please email me anytime. Thank you very much for watching.